If you think you might be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, BetterHelp, the sponsor of this episode, is here for you. BetterHelp offers a broad range of over 20,000 licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Plus, you can get 10% off your first month with my code, betterhelp.com/Kohler. With BetterHelp, you can talk to your therapist in a private online environment at your convenience, and all you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs before getting matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Then you schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages and everything you share is completely confidential. As a mom constantly working around Jaden's toddler schedule, having my weekly therapy online has been a complete game changer and a huge reason why I have made big steps to better my mental health for myself and for my family. You can also request a new therapist anytime at no additional charge. Join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Don't forget to use my code to get that 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kohler. That's better, HELP.com/Kohler. Hello and welcome to another episode of Kohler Commentary. Today I have Jess and Sal Ansari in front of me. And if you remember the name Jess Ansari, she was one of the 3 small business owners in our episode last November, where we were able to talk about her business Kavod Bakery. And so I'm glad to have her back here in another lens in terms of her marriage with Sal, but also specifically in her own journey with Graves' disease that I would want her to talk more on. And so I wanted to invite you guys on here, introduce yourselves and what your relationship might have looked like briefly. I might ask you some more questions as we move forward. And then we'll first start with you, Jess, and then kind of see how this partnership entails. But welcome to the podcast, guys, and beautiful home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're so happy you're here with us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Little scheduling mishap, but it's okay.
That's okay because we're all 2s and 9s and we just smile and we can work with the flow, you know?
Yes.
Okay, so we know each other through our church in Carrollton, Texas, and you guys actually were part of the church plant team. And so you moved here almost 2 years ago where you had just gotten married. Is that true?
Or was that 1 year? Married a year prior to that.
Okay, you were about to celebrate your first anniversary.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I do remember this was at the Old Center, Crosby, our first site, and it was your anniversary in August, maybe September. And Sal, he did all the planning. There was like a downtown night, and you were so excited. And I was like, wow, Sal is the planner,
1,000%.
you know, and like the romantic man, and you let that happen as well.
I make it happen.
That's right. The 2-wife man. So that was a snippet of just realizing like there is a strong chemistry, right, and a way that things work. And so I'd love you guys to just share a little bit of how you guys met and what brought you here.
Yeah. I guess I'm starting on how I met, but the way she looked at me. I moved to LA when I was 22, 23 from New York. And I attended a church there, which is actually our sending church, for those of you that don't know, Tapestry LA. And that's actually where I met Jess. She was my small group, one of the small group leaders. So I was looking up, if you will. And I always like to say that I actually didn't like her until after knowing her for a few months. But Jess always teases me for that and says that I actually liked her way sooner than I care to admit.
Oh, like. I think you meant like you didn't even like her.
Oh, no.
No. Like,
we definitely had a chemistry right from the get-go. But for me, I took that as, oh, wow, he's such a fun brother. You know, we get along so well. But yes, we did meet in cell group.
Yeah, I was brother zone pretty hard.
Yeah, almost immediately. Yeah.
Also because you are also looking up to her in age as well, right? By a week, you know?
You know exactly, right? Just by a month.
a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that kind of happens. You guys start to date, and then I think I recalled this being the love story that Pastor Yoon shares a lot of you guys ultimately pursuing before missions.
Yeah.
Is there a TLDR version?
Yeah, the TLDR version would be that I was crushing on Jess for multiple months, and I tend to be a pretty direct person, and I wanted to ask her out on a date like pretty early, but God pumped the brakes super hard because the day that I was going to ask her out on a date, she confessed to me that she was going on a mission trip to Guatemala, and I was also going on that same mission trip to Guatemala. And so we had to stomp on the brakes because all the wisdom from all the older brothers and sisters in my life were like, yeah, training is intense. You're going to see each other every week for the next 3 months. You probably don't want to risk that dynamic and then also be a distraction for both of you on the mission field. But then that trip got canceled due to COVID. And then that exact week that it was canceled on March 15th, I asked her out. And by the pure grace of God, she said yes. I'm not exaggerating on the grace of God piece.
What made you say yes if he was so brother zoned?
Yeah. So the day before he asked me out, it was March 14th, literally the day before, I went to my best friend's house and her mom was there. And I was processing with them about this dude, aka Sal, who was in my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this brother at church. He's so nice, great character, loves God. But I'm just not physically attracted to him, you know?
Ooh, that one hurt.
Let's be real.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I like this guy or not. And the mom, she looked at me in the eye. She was like, Jess. And I looked at her back and she said, you like him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do. And in that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, I do like Sal. But I never realized that I liked him because of the initial comfort, friendly chemistry that we had in the beginning. I almost felt like, oh my gosh, he's like such a good friend because I never really grew up having a lot of guy friends. And so when I hung out with Sal at Cell or in a large group setting, I'm like, wow, this guy is so fun. And I feel like myself, I feel comfortable, but I never equated that as like it being a good thing romantically. I've always thought I had to feel nervous or feel like butterflies or whatnot, but I didn't feel that way with Sal. I felt like I've known him. So it was a very interesting feeling.
That's the best feeling.
It is. Ever. In hindsight, it's the best feeling. But during, it's like,
Yeah. And even what society tells us of what it should feel like, or even the fact that you were a leader and y'all being so close, you would have to tell yourself even like, oh no, not at all, in order to help you guys be the good friends that you are, in a sense. So I see that. Wow. Well, that's so amazing. I'm so glad because it brought you guys here, and you guys definitely are such a pillar in the community. I just sometimes don't understand how you guys are breathing and like socializing because one thing also about them as a couple, I think I had shared in the previous podcast with Jess, is that she wears many hats within the church. And I think one of the only people that mirror that is Sal. If not, right? Like if Jess is doing kids, Sal's doing youth, right? And then also cell leading and also missions directing as well. And so I am curious, before we go into your story, one thing I wanted to read was this page from The Way Forward, and it says 4 ways to remain in alignment. And I read this because I feel like you guys, you just seem aligned in spirit. And I'm curious what you resonate with of these 4 things that are ways to remain in alignment. Don't listen to the feeling that you need to perform for others. Say no to situations that burn way too much of your energy. Surround yourself with people who love the authentic you, and let your intuition guide you, not your fears or cravings. I like to bring up one thing from this book each time with my guests this year. And I'm just curious, of these 4, which one would you guys say maybe is something that you've worked on to remain aligned in your own personal walk? Or also, what is one of these that you feel like is present in your marriage? Because for being so busy in so many ways and leading full-time jobs, and then also having to figure out different things health-wise and extracurriculars in your lives, like whether it's in this 4 lines or in general, like would you say is a place you put your effort in to make sure you guys remain aligned?
Yeah, I think for me, immediately, that first one you read really deeply resonates. Don't listen to the feeling that you need to perform for others. And I feel like a lot of the times, I think when it comes down to serving and meeting with people and a bunch of to-dos, it's so easy to maybe prioritize those things first above marriage. But I think, obviously we're doing our serving actions for God and all of that. But I think there needs to be time where we need to step away from doing all of our to-dos and really focusing on ourselves too. And I think that first one really does hit home for me.
What about you, Sal?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I do think Jess and I are very different, but my answer is the
number
same
one too.
Yeah, the number one too. I just feel like, having not grown up in the church or growing up with the relationship of God or knowing what that looks like, this was like a very earth-shattering thing for me. Like this concept that I don't do things just to please other people. Surely other people being pleased with you is can definitely be a marker of like you doing the right thing. But I think this idea that, at the end of the day, I am doing this whole thing called life for, as very cliche saying, is like audience of one kind of thing. But I will say, just to differentiate us a little bit, the second one is what I'm trying to grow in. So say no to situations that burn way too much of your energy. I think being an extrovert and liking being surrounded by a lot of other people, I say yes to a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't.
That's true. You're the extrovert.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And it does have a tendency to burn a lot of my energy. And sometimes that takes a toll on our marriage too. Just to kind of like say like, if I'm not doing the second one, it is hard to remain in alignment, because if I'm burnt out from all the energy that I'm expending with other people, it's tough to give that to Jess when I come home.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thanks, appreciate it.
What are some things that you guys do in terms of putting boundaries for people that in general just have so many responsibilities to prioritize marriage?
I have one that comes to mind quickly.
Okay.
And I only chuckle because we break it every now and then and we tease each other for it.
Yeah.
We don't schedule things on Tuesdays usually.
Oh, it was today. Okay. I was like, it's today too.
Today's Monday.
Today is not a Tuesday. I did have the usually there because I did forget what day it was.
Oh gosh.
No. We don't schedule things on Tuesdays. That is our carved out date night. And honestly, like it does not have to be like an extravagantly planned date. It just needs to be time where we are spending with one another, whether it is ordering in, going out to eat, cooking something up, mostly Jess because she's the far better chef than I am, or even just spending time at home. It doesn't matter what it is, but just spending time to be with one another and have that quality time.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I would add for us to protect our boundaries is by having a shared calendar as well. So we make a lot of plans with people, especially, during the weekend, and it gets so bonkers. And so we need to visually lay out who we're spending time with. And when we see that there's more than 2 meetups happening on a Saturday, for instance, if there's a friend who says, hey, can I hang out with you on this day? And there's technically like an opening in the evening, we have to say no because we already made plans with 2 other people earlier in the day. So I think we try to balance it out by really trying not to overstuff our schedule and really bringing in breathing room for us to just be at home, even if it's for a few hours. I think that recharge hour time is really important. Yeah.
Do you use Notion calendar? Plug it in?
We do use Notion for a lot of things. And I actually recently used the Notion calendar plugin. But our shared calendar is a Google Calendar.
Okay.
Yeah. We typically use Notion for traveling.
Trip planning.
Trip planning. Yeah, I think that's been very effective, but it's usually a Google Calendar.
And then I use it for work too. So
Yeah.
Right.
we've tried all kinds of things. We've tried to organize our pantry, kitchen, and grocery list with Notion, but it was really hard for both of us to upkeep because we just operate very differently. So.
But that's for another time.
I know.
Okay, and so with this and just like kind of like a backstory of you guys and hearing your dynamic, I did want to also focus on you, Jess, for a bit and also ask you, just in general, I know when we first joined, we had been in cell together, and then you did share your journey with Graves' disease and how that does affect your planning and different things and affect your daily life in terms of even diet and forward thinking of certain ways. And so I did want you to share tonight a way for... We should also look it up too, but for people like me that looked it up like 10 times and still like, I was like, Matt, so what exactly? Like for the science vocabulary delayed people like myself, how would you explain it? Yeah. And then a history of like maybe when you were diagnosed, what did that look like in the initial stage?
Right. So I think I will start by saying what our thyroid does.
That was one of the questions.
Yeah. So our thyroid plays a huge role in our metabolism, our growth, and just the overall development of our body. And it produces hormones that affect how deeply you breathe, how fast your heart beats, your body weight, your hair growth, all of that. And so based on some of these things that our thyroid does, which is so powerful and amazing, I actually started to experience symptoms that were opposite of that. So if the thyroid is trying to regulate your heartbeat, my heartbeat was irregular because I was getting heart palpitations that almost felt like anxiety. If our thyroid is supposed to produce hair that is thick and strong and healthy, well, I lost so much hair. Every time I took a shower, I would comb through and clumps would come out. And every time I woke up in the morning, I look at my pillow and there were so many strands of hair everywhere, to the point where even Sal, he noticed. And I feel like dudes don't really notice if your hair looks shorter one day or maybe you got a haircut, but no, Sal even noticed just your hair is thinning out. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I started losing a lot of weight without purpose or intention of wanting to lose weight. But I ended up losing 10 pounds in a few months. And I felt fatigued and all that. And so something was up, obviously. And that's when I decided to get my health checked up during my annual exam. And it's something that I do every year, but I wanted to book my appointment sooner because clearly something was not okay. So we got married in September 2021. In October 2021, I booked my annual exam with my doctor. And when I got my blood results back, he flagged that my thyroid hormones were off. And he said, Jess, you need to see an endocrinologist. And I was like, a who? What's that? Who's that? I didn't know, all these specialized doctors because I never had to worry about my health in this way. But he told me to see an endocrinologist, which is essentially a doctor who studies, our hormones and our glands and our thyroid, all of that. And after testing consistently for a couple months, she did confirm that I indeed had Graves' disease. And it was a very shocking moment because Graves' disease is an autoimmune disorder, which means that technically I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. But there are ways to keep your hormones regulated and for it to be in a state of remission is what they call it, where everything is kind of stabilized and balanced. But if I were to go through another stressful encounter in life, or maybe if I'm overwhelmed, that can affect my hormones, which will then trigger all these symptoms again. So when I saw my endocrinologist, she did put me on medication. And luckily, it wasn't super severe where she had to give me a high dosage. It was a very small dosage, but I had to take it every single day for months. And I had a follow-up appointment with her every couple months as well. But as I started taking my medication consistently, she then started to see improvement in my overall thyroid panel, which is a good thing. And as she started to see improvement, she then told me to scale back on my medication. So what went from being every day went down to every other day to a couple times a week. And finally, I'm no longer on medication. So that's been my overall journey so far. I highly recommend everyone seeing their doctor every year just for an annual checkup, because that's how I discovered my Graves' disease to begin with, because I was very observant of what was going on and was very in tune with things that felt off in my body. And I wanted to address that right away.
You didn't really have any major health restrictions prior to this.
No.
And so there's no family?
That's the thing. There's no family who have Graves' disease or hyperthyroidism. I know my aunt in Korea, when I asked my mom, she said that she has hypothyroidism, which is the opposite effect. But there's no one in my family who has hyperthyroidism. So I think this was purely through circumstance and being overly stressed during that time of year, because I was working at a very stressful environment at that time, and I was going through transition, right? Like I just got married. And so I think that really took a toll on my body that did something, right? It just really made me experience all these symptoms.
What was your initial reaction when it is something that doesn't make sense? And also, it is said to be a more common disease, but that doesn't make it any less like in terms of how it affects your daily life, you know? And so I am curious, one, what was your initial reaction? How did you have to adjust and respond? Yeah, and just like the emotional side of this journey.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My heart sank when I first found out. And I think when the doctor said that it's an autoimmune disorder or a disease, like that just sounds really scary too. So I definitely got very scared. Now that I think about it, when I was a baby, I was very sick as a kid too. But it was when I was an infant. I had something called botulism, which we can get into later. But but I think there was trauma that my parents personally had of my illness. So when I told them about my health, there was just a lot of worry on my parents' end that made me feel even more worried for my own health. And so I think this definitely made me take more control in my day-to-day activities for sure. Like I felt like I had to be good about working out every day, eating healthier, saying no to certain things, and just being at peace, not being stressed out. But of course, that's so hard to do, to be in full control of your life in that way. But I tried my best to be calm, and Sal is there to help me through all of that, to help me process and to help me breathe when times got tough, you know?
Yeah. Sal, great transition. Because I don't think I knew this was diagnosed for you during that first year of marriage. Maybe I thought this was prior to that. And so it sounds like, you know, even in that it was going through it not together physically, but together in a sense of even observing the signs and then being there to be the support initially when all of this was happening. Sal, what was it like for you to navigate in terms of your response and even how to support Jess at this time, whether it be in a physical way or also in an emotional way?
Yeah. It was obviously a huge shock to me too, as it was her, because it wasn't something that either of us saw coming. And honestly, like until recently, it was really just like the thorn in our side of our relationship and our marriage of like, this is something that was kind of with us since the beginning. And that's, I think, why it was such a breakthrough moment for both of us when she was finally put in a position where, you know, she could get off the medication and still see the regular symptoms in her body as well as in her thyroid panel when she got her blood drawn. Because, it was something that we lived with for the past almost 3 years now. But I think in terms of my response and support to Jess, when I was really thinking about this, I think I was flashing back to how I responded initially. And unfortunate to say, I responded initially in the way that many men are infamous for, which is instead of being emotionally present when your wife wants to process with you and share her heart with you, you look for a solution, right? As men are so infamous for. But I think this was a great lesson for me, just from the Lord, and how to navigate marriage, because there was no solution, honestly. I mean, as Jess said, like, how hard is it to control your stress levels? If the thing that triggers it is stress and someone tells you don't be stressed, that feels stressful. Right? And so like, I think that was my initial response, but I quickly learned that this isn't curable. There is no solution that I can come up with. Sure, maybe there are things that I could do, but nothing that could be like explained away or an immediate behavior change that could change things. And so I honestly just had to learn to shift my focus on, you know, being there for her emotionally. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of sadness. And honestly, all the other emotions that you can imagine if this was kind of just sprung onto you in your marriage for both of us. But we had to accept that, or I had to accept rather, that was something that I just had to be one with her in, and just trust and process and pray about it together, cry about it together in the early days, and just really understand that God is the one who is going to have to bring about the solution, because that is not something that I can do. But the one thing I can do is be there for her and love her through it. So.
Yeah, I know. Sal was honestly so amazing during that time. I just remember crying so much, especially over my hair.
Yeah.
I know it's so silly to say, but I think for me, I believe one of my feminine attributes is hair, you know? And when I started experiencing a loss of that, it felt like a part of me was dying away, if you will. Like I felt less beautiful, if I'm honest. And I remember looking at the mirror and not feeling beautiful. And Sal had to look at me straight in the eye and tell me every morning, Jess, you're so beautiful. Even though I didn't feel like it, I had to believe it, despite the number of strands of hair that I had. But yeah, I'm just so grateful for just Sal emotionally being available for me, and even practically too, because there are certain foods that I couldn't eat and indulge in very often, such as seafood or sushi, food that has high iodine, because that really affects my hormones. And so whenever we eat sushi, which happens like once in a blue moon, like that's when he really treats me out, you know? And so I think there's a lot of sacrifice that he made, obviously, to cater to my day-to-day diet and whatnot. But I'm just so grateful for our partnership together and just for his daily affirmations.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I love that. It's like when you were sharing that part of just like every morning speaking to you in that way, it reminds me of that direct characteristic that you said you have at the beginning, you know? So even in the ways you have to be direct for Jess when she can't necessarily fill in that blank at the beginning, you know? Not that 9s mean no emotion, but what did it look like to sit with someone else? Because it sounds like, yes, you brought up the infamous husband trait or male trait, right? And then it often leads to frustrations and maybe bigger fights in whatever coupleship you might be in. And it sounds like, you know, you were able to navigate that. Do you have advice or even practicalities if that was something you were already used to, of like going deep and sitting with someone emotionally rather than solutionally first? Yeah, what did that look like for husbands or you? Yeah.
Yeah, I do have to give credit where credit is due. I was blessed to grow up with older sisters. And because of that, I think it showed me that emotions are not something to be afraid of. But I was also raised in an immigrant household, which called men sensitive for ever showing emotion, right? My dad would essentially reprimand me for being sensitive and emotional. So I think there was definitely opposing factors there. But if it wasn't for my sisters, I probably would have just been very, very emotionless and not really know how to handle my emotions and communicate them.
I'm hearing like the original of you for you is like, you had it in you. You were telling yourself not to do it, but you had it.
Yes.
Kind of. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then in this situation as a husband where that had to be there, was it just like you unleashing what was already in there, or like, was it like, it's okay to be sensitive? Like you need to be originally who you are, or what? Yeah. That part.
I think that's the big thing though, right? Where it's like, I needed to be, right? Because more cliche traits of men is they focus a lot on like the doing and like, you know, I have to be the protector of the household. I have to be the provider of the household. I have to be the guy that like gets things done, right? In the household. But that's not what she needed. She didn't need those in that immediate sense. Like, sure, those are still ways that I longed to serve her and to love her. But at the end of the day, like what she needed at that time was legitimately someone to cry with her, was someone to be there in the messiness and to feel her heart. And I think that is like, honestly, one of the most beautiful things to me about marriage is how we get into this like deeper level of emotional closeness with a person that when you see they are in pain, you feel it. You genuinely feel it too, because she is, to quote scripture, she is like a member of my own body, right? And so when she is in pain, I am in pain. I feel it as if it is my own hand that like was cut off, obviously, figuratively speaking. And so I think because that was there, all I had to really do is just to let it out and to allow the space for that, and to understand that that was a time for those other roles and those other responsibilities to be secondary. Because ultimately, you know, again, there was nothing I could do about this. God is the ultimate provider. God is the ultimate protector. And I just had to trust him in that, and protecting her health and providing for us the healing that ultimately he did. So
For you, Jess, it sounds like, especially the emotional responses or like navigating that happen in LA or California, right? Because that's when you were diagnosed and that was your location. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, like, this is more for maybe people listening, and how to even though it's not your identity, it pretty much dictates your daily, right? And so it becomes a part of who you are in a way, right? And so like, one, what did that look like in just like navigating in general? Like, this is not my identity, or even though, that part of it. And also like, then second year of this journey, you're in Dallas where you're meeting new people, and this might be the only identity you could carry, like not could carry, but you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't know just pre-Graves' disease, or like people don't also understand the Graves' disease. Do you feel like you have to explain it to everyone, explain yourself? Like, what did it look like just navigating identity in two different locations, and also in general for yourself? Big question, but
yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that's a great question, because I think I see it in two ways. In LA, I felt like when I first got diagnosed with Graves' disease, this wasn't something I publicly talked about, first of all. I felt like it was more hidden. I only shared it with Sal and two of my very close girlfriends, but this wasn't something I even wanted people to know about or ask about. And even with the whole hair loss situation, for instance, I didn't want to draw attention to that, right? And so for me, I remember cutting my hair a bit shorter and even tying it up more, just to not make others notice, and definitely not mentioning it. Because if I mentioned it, then they're going to notice. And so I think I definitely felt like I had to hide more in LA. And the way that I try to cope with that, with my identity, is honestly, like, it was a daily process. I mean, now my hair did finally grow back, right? And so I think with the daily affirmations Sal gave, and just reminding myself what beauty is, right? And how we're so subjective in the way that we define it, I had to redefine what beauty is, and at the end of the day, we're all going to fade away. We're going to get saggy. We're going to get gray hair, and I think there just was a lot more peace processing through that now, which is why by the time I came to Dallas, I felt like emotionally and mentally, I was in a much better and healthier place, where even in our cell group, I was so open and candid about sharing about my experience of getting heart palpitations, of like losing weight and losing hair. It just didn't feel like I had to hide it. And I think that came from being more secure, honestly, of my identity, and also believing that I am beautiful regardless of that, So there was definitely a stark difference emotionally when I lived in LA versus now in Dallas. And I think so far it's been so good inviting community into it, because I truly believe the prayers I received from so many of my sisters and brothers and pastor, everyone, really contributed to my health now, which is so much better, where I don't need to be on medication anymore.
Right.
And so just to give you some context, Joey, since you missed that night, I officially stopped taking medication at the end of 2023.
Yes.
It was close to maybe like November or so. And I stopped because I had my follow-up appointment at that time. And my doctor was like, Jess, let's just have you stop completely, because I just want to see how your body reacts now that you're doing better. And so I was like, okay, let's stop. So fast forwarding, in February, I had my follow-up appointment, and it's been a few months, right? So just last month, I went to go see my doctor, got my blood drawn, and I let her know that I want to start having a family this year. But of course, if I were to be on this specific medication, I would have to delay my pregnancy journey, because I cannot get pregnant while being on this meds, because this will affect the health of my baby. And so I didn't want to be on medication, period, once we start trying. And so with that in mind, my doctor was like, okay, let's continue monitoring. And so in February, when she drew my blood, everything came back amazing and green. And my heart just was so elated and so happy. And Sal was in New York for his work trip. So I had no one to tell immediately. So I had to text him. I sent him screenshots and he obviously responded right away. And we were just both celebrating on our phones, like, yay, emojis after emojis. And I was just so happy. And this is really a testament to, honestly, God's faithfulness, and because I invited community into this process. And I'm just so happy. And it's just really exciting because this is our green light to officially start trying for kids. To try for kids this year. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have like multiple how's life now. Sorry.
I know. We should definitely meet up again for this. Yeah, follow up. But it's very amazing. It's very exciting. Wow.
Yeah, it was quite the jump for joy. And obviously, like, we just shared the news with everyone that we could, just to honestly like praise God.
Publicly. Seriously. I love how Jess brought up, inviting community in being a huge change and shift into even all of this. Like, is there any other thing that you would credit in that sense of like the journey besides you guys? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. Jess just said something really beautiful about, like, did you hear it? Okay, so
did you hear that?
I definitely did.
So, like, would you want to have added anything to that, or like, was that beautifully said? And I'll just edit my part out.
I think it was very, very well said, and I just think it's really, really powerful to kind of. I'm really echoing what she's saying, but just to come alongside people publicly and to see how. We're called to weep when our community weeps, and we're called to rejoice when our community rejoices. Yeah. And to see that come full circle with our closest friends and family and our community and our brothers and sisters, like they were weeping with us and they were feeling our pain with it. But then they also got to share, and all of our joys were complete, like being able to share that news just made it even better because we could all just publicly thank God together.
Yeah.
Praise God. Oh my goodness.
I know.
And so kind of like you said, or previewed into, is what would the near or far future, what this burden lifted, like freedom feeling in general, what does marriage look like? Because your first year was defined in a physical way of like a diagnosis like this, and now there is not. So
I mean, I think you added some vocals there that I think is relevant. About chicken wow wow. I think that's a perfect tone, for what we're experiencing now. I think my heart feels so much lighter. I'm just not as controlling in my day-to-day. Like I don't feel like I'm always thinking about what I need to do, what I need to eat, like how I'm managing my stress. Like, although when I do get stressed, Sal does come into my office and he just like touches my shoulders and he just like pushes it down, like you need to relax. And I'm like, okay, I need to breathe. So there are moments where I need to still manage my stress, but overall there's just like a huge burden that's been lifted and I feel so much happier. Yeah.
That's good. You guys are already traveling again, right?
Yeah.
Korea, you too? Right?
Korea, it's happening next week.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Like
so a lot of travel
TBC.
plans.
Yeah.
I know. They're all going. Yeah. Definitely a lot more traveling is going to happen before we start trying for kids.
Right.
Yeah. And trying for kids is the most immediate thing, obviously. We have... because we declared it in such a public way, there's so many people following up with us.
Is that one of the things you wish you didn't say so publicly?
On one hand, Jess and I have very lighthearted personalities, so we just laugh about it. But we do quickly remind people that, like, we're not trying just yet.
Enjoying this.
Yeah, we're enjoying it.
Yeah,
but you know what? All the more reason to invite community into it so they can pray for our healthy pregnancy journey.
Yeah.
Yes. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anything else specific to this topic before I just ask how your marriage is? How's marriage, guys? What did you do for your second year anniversary? Another night?
What did we do? Last September.
Why do I not remember?
And it feels like such a blur.
I was like, I didn't realize another anniversary came through.
Yeah.
I'm going back in the calendar.
I love how organized you guys are. That's amazing.
I know. Everything is on our calendar, so we can tell you right now.
Was that like a you thing or a you thing? Or
it's
like
a
you guys
Sal thing.
Wow.
And then I just agreed immediately.
Wow.
I didn't even have to fight him about it. I'm like, yeah, share a calendar. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Wow.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
You didn't do anything?
Oh, no. We went to Japan.
Oh.
Yes. We went to
How did I
Japan.
forget? We y'all spent it with Matt. Spent your anniversary with my man.
Oh, that's so funny.
that's
We
right,
were in
that's right,
Japan for a
that's
few
right.
weeks, and so we kind of celebrated there.
Yeah, that was the big thing. So
Yeah.
we definitely played it more low key on the actual anniversary day. But our
because
big
that
thing
was
was we went to Japan and we did eat, sushi and sashimi, which is, I
Lots
guess she
of
said,
it.
a huge treat.
Yeah.
So like you can eat all of those things now.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I can't say that I can eat it every day. Everything has to be done in moderation. But I mean, I'm definitely not intense about it.
Yeah.
I feel a lot more relaxed about what I eat and what I put in my body. Yeah.
I do wanted to ask, like, because this was triggered by stress, one, like, it's so hard not to have stress. So it's like, if that's the trigger, like, while you're not so controlling about it, like, what are some maybe practical things you have in place to calm your mind or calm that stress that you feel like has helped you? Do you have any of those that have habitually been created now? Or?
Yeah. I think for one thing, I love going on long walks. And so in our neighborhood, there's just a beautiful trail that I like to walk in without any music. I literally love walking without having any outside stimuli, or any sort of music making me not be present. And so I've been really enjoying hearing the birds chirp, the cars race through. I've been trying to just incorporate daily walks.
You're gonna be a great grandma.
I know. I'm channeling my grandma era so early, but yeah, just going on these long walks. And honestly, it's just like watching shows with Sal and movies, like just taking life easy. Like it's okay to take things slow. And I think when my pace is slow, I naturally don't feel as stressed because my stress comes from being high strung at times and feeling like I need to rush or I need to do things quickly. But if I remind myself that it can wait, I can clean the house later, I can do the dishes later, or I can ask Sal to do it. All these things, all that help me to really stay more calm and at peace.
Is him touching your, like, is that one of those signs where, like, if you're not aware, he's able to?
Oh, he picks up on it so quickly. So for sure, like when I'm tense and he's close by, he definitely like either rubs me or touches my shoulder. And then I realize, oh shoot, I need to relax. So my shoulder literally physically starts.
You could literally see it unroll.
It starts unrolling. And so, yeah, Sal's very in tune with my mannerisms and he can pick up on when I'm stressed. And when
Are
I'm
you in
flustered.
tune with people in general, or?
I think so. I think I'm fairly familiar with body language. But I think it's mostly just specific to Jess. Like, I think just spending so much time. For context,
Physical touch is your love language then?
actually, quality time is my number one. But I guess I do give through physical
I
touch.
feel like all men is physical touch.
And then it's like women's down here.
Yeah, but for context, Jess and I work from home together. Through our years of marriage, when she got her first remote job, we spent a lot of time with one another, and I think I've just become more attuned with her body language more specifically.
And I will say Sal has a pretty high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to pick up on that without me having to verbalize, I'm feeling stressed, but he's able to see it.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like that's just his emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Kicking
Do you
in.
get stressed, Sal, easily, or I'm curious, like, like if you're always stressed, and then if you're stressed, is there like well, I'm stressed right now, or like,
It manifests differently.
That's very different.
Very differently. More physically, if you want to share that.
share it?
Oh my gosh. Okay. What is your podcast rated? Like rated in terms of like.
Is it rated R?
Yeah.
I just don't have explicit words, that's it.
Okay.
Fair
okay.
game, Sal.
So yeah, I personally praise myself as someone who does manage stress very, very well. I have, it's such a shame that I have to say this in this society, but I've only experienced an anxiety attack like once in my life. And it was mostly driven by something that was like interpersonal with someone else. But the big thing is that I get stressed, but I don't show it outwardly. Have you ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, or Your Body Keeps the Score? So it's kind of like that, right? Where I might not act stressed and I don't get high strung and I don't show people that I'm stressed, but my body reacts in ways that like is obvious of stress. And so I don't know if I'm saying this right. So if we have any physicians listening, fact check me on this, but I believe it's called proctalgia fugax, which, do you know what that is?
No, but it sounded like fuck. So I was like, is that where it's gonna be?
No, it wasn't that. But basically,
Like, do you get a boner?
no. It's worse.
He's feeling stressed.
It's worse.
It's after. Okay, sorry.
Okay. So basically what it is an involuntary muscle contraction. So basically a cramp in the muscle that pushes your poop out.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know if I can say this word, so please edit it out if I can't, but your anal muscle, it will literally cramp, like the same way that you would get a leg cramp or a muscle cramp or anything like that kind of cramp. That happens to my butthole. Wow. And it's excruciatingly painful. And I only actually discovered this because we had a pregnancy scare our first week of marriage. And I was so stressed.
Because you ain't ready yet.
Because I was not ready. Literally, yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. And we went to the doctor. He checked for everything, like literally everything. And then he's like, there's this condition. It's caused by stress or dehydration. Do you drink water? I'm like, doctor, I religiously drink like a gallon of water each day. He's like, it's not that then. Stop stressing. And I'm like, how are you going to tell me to stop stress? And it just all clicked because it was in that season. And then as that, as her period came and all that stuff, it just went away. But it is terribly, terribly painful. Like so much so that I would scream. Like I couldn't control it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
He had to skip cell night because it was so bad. And I remember he was in the room and I was with my girls and I'm hearing a faint scream. I don't know if my girls heard it, but he's screaming into a pillow. Yeah, because of his anal spasm, whatever you call it, right? And so, yeah, it definitely, stress definitely manifests differently for each of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can visibly see when I'm stressed. I will not look good.
Yeah,
But
same.
he will not feel good.
And then I won't look good for like
You're
15
literally,
seconds.
a 9 is in the body triad.
You're literally reacting within your body.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's so funny.
That's so funny. I mean,
Yeah.
like in general, 9s should, have more body work or like in general, like check your body for some.
Wow.
But that's so crazy to hear that. And you're also in tune with body for Jess when she's in that stress.
Yeah.
That's so crazy to hear. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I apologize for any of the listeners who are a little disturbed.
I think it still kept PG in the
Yeah, I think
description.
so too.
Okay. Well, anything else you would want to share in this first chapter of marriage where you really are closing this book? Any strengths or weaknesses? I think it's kind of cool how you guys were able to connect so emotionally, and that's like a foundation for a lot more like, turmoil to come in different ways, but that unity has been like foundation, right? And so I think that's really cool to hear in y'all's story of this. Anything else or any advice for newlyweds now that you're almost 3 years in?
I know.
But not everyone is blessed with emotional intelligence. So like you can't just like, some of us listening are probably like, well, that must be nice for you guys to just like be so in sync.
I will say, and it's actually funny you just said so in sync. My advice to newlyweds or anyone who is, in their first few years, embrace the differences. So Jess and I are actually very, very different. When we first started dating, people joked and said like, oh, you guys are so similar. But I think it's because we give off a similar energy at first in like public settings with people and crowds. But we have a lot of differences, and I think it makes us very complementary. And I think it's funny because you mentioned strengths and weaknesses. I think our differences are both strengths and weaknesses for each of us. And so some examples that I have is, Jess is really quick and efficient at everything she does. Pali pali, you know? But I am very, very slow and like methodical. Yeah. Jess's strength, and this is a different one, Jess's strength is executing. But I am more confident in my ability to like plan and strategize, going back to like planning for trips and dates and all that stuff. Jess, this is going to get a little convoluted, so bear with me. She is a extroverted introvert, but I am an introverted extrovert. So there's a lot of things, that make us very different. But honestly, those are both our strengths and weaknesses, right? So we've gotten into fights over how fast she is and how slow I am.
I was about to ask, like,
all the time.
All the time. But then sometimes when it comes down to the wire, it really ends up being something that just rounds us out. Because, like you have one person that's like, let's go. We got to do this. And you have another person that's like, pause, let's take it a little bit slower and like maybe try to plan this out a bit. And then you really do need to meet in the middle. So embrace the differences.
That's good.
wow. Well, I'm excited for what's next. I usually do this thing also, but we don't have to. But okay, I'm just gonna. It's like a journal of prompts, but it's in Korean. And so I had picked this one before, but I think like you guys kind of answered it throughout. Are you good at Korean?
Yeah.
Okay, because 우연 인연이 있다고 믿나요? Like, so 우연 is like accidents, and then 인연 is kind of like fate, right? I don't know. So basically the question I think in Korean though is like, do you believe in fate or coincidences? So I think if we were to translate it to English, it would be, do you believe everything happens for a reason or not? In that type of vein.
That's a really good
우연
question.
인연이 있다고 믿나요? Sal, you're pretty good at Korean, so.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that for sure. Everything does happen for a reason. This is so tied to our faith too, right? I just don't think there's any mistake in everything that we go through, whether they are tribulations or victories or whatever. I think all that is meant to happen and to help with some level of development in your character, in your level of resilience and grit, something where you can learn from. And so I think that's a really profound question / statement. And I'm fully aligned with that. I do believe in it for sure.
Yeah. Jess kind of covered it from the faith perspective. And so I will just tell a quick story that I think kind of complements that. Y'all know how you try to get away from certain things, but then you ultimately can't have it your way. And then because you didn't have it your way, your life ends up for the better. That was my experience in getting married to Jess. There's a lot to this, but I didn't want to move to LA. And I tried everything in my power to get around to it. In fact, I was supposed to move to San Francisco 2 weeks before I was supposed to move. So I was moving for work and I was supposedly placed in San Francisco and I was really happy. Lease was signed and everything. But I then received the message from my work that I had to move to LA instead. And I did everything I could in my company, applied for a bunch of other jobs to either stay in New York or go to San Francisco. But for one reason or another, God wanted me in LA. And to make things even crazier and like spooky, but in a cool Christian way, Jess has, if you don't mind me sharing, this list of qualities that she wanted in her future husband. And when we first started dating, it was validated by me, her, but more importantly, her close friends and my close friends, that I ticked basically every single box.
Wow.
In fact, I think I am confident enough to get rid of the basically part. I ticked every single box of the things that she has been praying for.
Wow.
But the crazy thing is, I was none of those things prior to becoming a Christian. And then to make it even crazier, the exact season, maybe even down to the day, some room for error down to the week, that she started praying for those things was when I actually first became a Christian. So when we got to the altar with confidence, I was able to say, you played a role in my salvation story because you were praying for your future husband. And that happened to be me.
Yeah. And Sal, as you know, he's my first boyfriend who is now my husband. So I was very, very picky, to say the least, about just the type of man I wanted to marry. Wow. And I've dated a few guys here and there, just went on dates, but no one really met my standard. And ironically, when I met Sal for the first time, I didn't think he, quote unquote, met my standard either. But then the more I hung out with him and the more we spent time together, it all kind of clicked for me. Wow. I'm like, whoa, this guy is literally what I prayed for.
Yeah.
You know? So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it even adds to that aspect of, you know, me feeling very familiar to her.
Yeah.
Where it's like that character, the character that she was praying for and the type of person that she was praying for almost a decade,
a long time.
Yeah, a long time was the person that she was hanging out with. So of course there would be familiarity there, you know? Yeah.
I was sad that I didn't ask this in the beginning, because when I picked that question, it was based on like the COVID story of you guys like when you guys dated, like later type of thing. But I'm so glad I waited till now on accident. Like this quote, Eunjoey, like oopsie, that's perfect right now, because you shared like this powerful story, you know, of like literally to the weekday of y'all like, you know, being for each other.
Yeah.
In that way. So that's like beautiful.
I know, it's really cool.
And I think that's just a reminder of how God really uniquely writes each person's love story. You know, like this is not for another couple down the road, but this is like so beautiful to y'all. And so I'm like, oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. I'm excited to do. I say it a lot, like I'd like to do more with people, but I really do want to do it. You guys are great guests, and a lot of, I feel like even as you're sharing today, there's a lot of like your single journeys too that would love to hear more about.
Yeah, we'll love to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, podcast is only as good as its host or hostess.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you're amazing, Joey.
All right, 5 questions. Who is cleaner? In 3, 2, 1. Oh, this is really hard.
It's really difficult.
This is hard because we're clean in different ways. Now, as far as I will speak first. So as far as cleaning the toilets, you know, vacuuming, doing all that, I always do it.
Okay.
For the most part. Now, Sal can then chime in about why he might feel like he's cleaner because
I think I am tidier. So things being put in place is very much so my thing. And then what bothers me are the types of dirtiness that you can't see. And so I'm very big on like deep cleaning things that people wouldn't even think to deep clean. And my very weird thing is I have this like idea of transitory dirt. So if your grocery bags like touch the floor when you're like opening the door because you need a hand to unlock the door, and then you come in and then put it on the countertop, you basically just transferred what was on the floor onto the countertop, but you don't wear your shoes in the house. That doesn't make sense to me.
So a bit more meticulous.
But you don't get stressed?
No, I just wipe it. Yeah.
But he gets annoyed.
But I do get annoyed.
Yeah.
I do get
He's
annoyed.
like, oh my gosh, Jess, you put this on the counter.
But then is it okay at other people's houses?
I wouldn't do it to other people.
But like when you're like sitting here, it's like, oh my gosh, was there plastic bag?
Oh, no, it doesn't bother me though. Yeah.
I think it's only for our home.
For your standard of you here. Because then at the end of the day, you can shower and clean off whatever from the day.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a funny one.
I see why this is a very particularly both of you. And
we like hesitated. We're like, it's me, but it's also you.
What was your reaction to this very particular...
Oh my gosh, we fought. Of course we fought when we first got married, you know? I'm like, who is this guy who barely, like at that time, barely helped out washing the dishes and whatnot, complaining about this
something else being dirty.
Yeah, something else that's dirty that you can't visibly see. And so I remember fighting about it. And then now we just kind of have like a healthy compromise of me understanding what ticks him and being more mindful about where I put my grocery bags and whatnot. And he's been doing a much better job of helping me with dishes and all that. So
who is funnier in 3, 2, 1?
Me.
I think Sal is funnier mainly because he's just so stupid.
So stupid.
But like it's like stupid. You know what I mean? Not, like in the funniest way. Yeah. He brings out the crazy side of me. I mean, I thought I was already crazy, but being married to him, I'm like even crazier. And so I think he is just so silly, so ratchet, so funny, so like I don't know, so everything. He's great.
Yeah,
I
take pride
have
in
not seen that ratchet side.
Most people haven't.
Oh,
but
okay.
I grew up in an inner city high school, so there's a lot of ratchetness.
See,
there.
I want to know more of your personal journey later.
His hoodness behind closed doors.
Yeah. But I do take pride in being able to make Jess laugh ridiculously, like so much so that she like insults me for being so dumb.
Was that one of your boxes? Like humor?
Oh yeah, that was. But like lighthearted humor, which he has.
Whose hair is prettier? Because you guys both have luscious hair. For those who don't know Sal, in 3, 2, 1.
I think I do now.
I would say Jess. I would say Jess. That is hard though.
Yeah.
And it's crazy for me to hear, just because when I met you, your hair was, I mean, you are beautiful, but like your hair didn't look like there had been a history of, you know, struggle in that. You know? And so, yeah, it's like good to see that part is back to how you feel.
Yeah, which is so awesome for me to declare that I have better hair than Sal.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at one point Sal had better hair than mine.
That must have been hard. Like that is literally like a an insecurity for you at that time. And
for
the one person is like over here. Shung, shung, shung. Did you have long hair then too?
No,
oh yeah, you have like
He had
your
short
profile
hair.
pictures. But it's always luscious. Y'all both have like the dark features.
Wavy, textured hair. Yeah.
Okay, and last one. What is your favorite trait about each other?
This
There's
is
so many
hard.
Just
There's
one.
a lot.
Just one.
Just
That's
one.
why it's hard.
Ew. Beautiful.
Cringe.
No, don't make me go first.
Oh man. Okay, fine. I'll go first. Yeah. There's a lot, but I think one thing I really appreciate about Sal is he's very level-headed and he's not super reactive. So for me, I can be very explosive, very fiery, very, very passionate, especially in my tone, which has made him cry a lot of times. But I won't get into that. But Sal has never yelled at me.
Wow.
Not even once. He has never cussed at me. I may or may not have
Clearly
cussed
the other
at him. But he has never done that, which is so shocking.
Wow.
And so for me, like, it's just so weird because I grew up with 3 siblings and the way that we fought was very loud, you know, but we like make up and we're good.
Yeah.
But with him, I can't do that to him. And so I learned that, wow, like Sal is so good about not yelling at me, and he has helped me to not be as explosive because of that. So definitely a great quality trait that helps me become a better person too.
At the beginning, when you were like figuring out y'all's dynamic, did you want him to be explosive back? Not in like an unhealthy way, but like, come on, like fight. I don't know.
No, but sometimes,
Gosh.
but sometimes I feel like there are times when like Sal is very, not professional, but I don't know if he's truly saying the nasty part of his heart. He knows how to describe things in such a way that it's still tasteful. And for me, I'm just like a bit skeptical. I'm like, are you serious right now?
He actually says that.
Like, is this seriously what you mean? Like, do you mean what you say? Because I'm telling you straight up that I think that's really ugly. But he like somehow says it in a way that's still tasteful. So there are times where I'm like, just say how it is. I won't get offended, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it's like truly, I don't know, Sal, you can speak into that. I don't know if you're being genuine or if that's who you are, but yeah, that's just one of those things where I wish he was more real about.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think it's because I really view words as like a measure twice, cut once kind of thing, where you can't take back what you say.
Okay, I was like, I have no idea what that means. I just said,
Yeah, it's like the example of like you're cutting paper as a kid, but you measure like how long it is or how wide it is 2 times before you actually make the cut. Yeah, because you can't uncut it.
Thank you.
So I think like that's why I do measure my words in that regard, because I do feel like as soon as I say something, I won't be able to take it back. And I will say though, Jess probably never wished that I would fight back, because we both unanimously agree that she cannot take what she deals. She is really, really sensitive. And
He
fact,
said that with a hand on Jess's shoulder. I love
yeah. In fact, one of the first things that my mother-in-law said to me when we were dating, or when we were engaged, actually, is she was like, in her super adorable broken English, was like, "We never knew if who Jess would get married to because she's just so sensitive." Rings true.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so much that it's really, really difficult to pick one trait. But I think instead of it being a trait, if I can cheat a little bit, it would just more be like who she is to me. And it's just the fact that she is my partner in all kinds of things. There is not a single decision that I am comfortable making unless I have her alignment. It truly, truly feels like everything that I have accomplished in my life since we got married is due to the fact that I have had our partnership throughout it all. And then if you take into consideration that she was praying for me before we even met, I guess everything I ever accomplished in life is due to her partnership. So yeah, I think she really does encapsulate like the concept of the Bible saying like woman is a helper, but that word for helper, one, is the same word that's used for the Holy Spirit, and two, it's the same word that's used for like military reinforcement. And it really feels like she is my military reinforcement, that if she is not there with me by my side, the battle would be lost.
Yeah.
It is not a superior inferior thing. It is I need those reinforcements in my life. So
Good. That's really good.
I mean, the helper is Enneagram too, right? And I think you're making that, even for those that might hear that, and like, is it inferior, superior? Is that something that we could feel at times, right? But like, you're putting that in a way that really brings authority to the wife. Yeah, I feel like I've learned so much from you guys. That I'm a 2 and Matt's a 9, and I think I'm taking a lot of notes from just listening to y'all's stories. So praising God alongside of you guys for just like the healing that you've experienced together as well, and I'm excited for what's next.
Yeah. Bum chicka wow.
oh my gosh.
This time though, when there is a hope, there ain't no profructulus happening because no stress.
Yeah, no stress this time around.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope you guys enjoyed another episode of
Color Commentary.
Bye.